Hello, everyone. I'm the Bodacious Cowboy with my co-host, Christy Knichel. Are you ready for a special edition of the Storytelling Chronicles? We are. Let's go.
Look out! Pop, pop, it's showtime. 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 Guess who's back again? Oh, they don't know. Gone time. Oh, they don't know. Gone time. I bet they know as soon as we walk in. Showed up. I'm wearing Cuban links. Yeah. Designer mix. Yeah. Inglewood's finest shoes. Whoop, whoop. Don't look too hard, might hurt yourself. Known to give the color red the blues.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Storytelling Chronicles, empowering women into logistics. I am the Bodacious Cowboy. It's Monday, the 11th of March. I can't believe we're almost halfway through the month already. I'm going to bring in my co-host, Christy Knichel. Hey, Christy, how you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
I am doing wonderful. Have a great weekend.
Awesome weekend. Other than it snowed on Sunday when it was like 70 on Friday. So pretty interesting.
Yeah, I wish that weather would come up here because it's freezing up here. We got 50-mile-an-hour winds today. So if the internet goes out, don't blame me. I'm sorry. I just have to go and say that out loud. But yeah, we got a great guest today. And also we have some new sponsors. You want to say anything about that?
Yeah. Before we bring our guest on, this show is one of our new sponsors is TAFS. And TAFS is a full-service factoring company specializing in the purchase of accounts receivables from small and medium-sized transportation companies. Our focus on client service allowed TAFS to quickly become a leader in the transportation factoring industry. So you can contact them today at 913-393-6100 for more information.
Great. Let's bring this thing up here.
Trucking excellence meets unparalleled service. Enjoy exclusive benefits like our fantastic tire discounts. Need cash fast? Try our 1-hour advances. Plus, we're here for you 365 days a year. Need loads? We have a pro dispatch service. This is why TAFS was recognized as the top factoring company in 2023. You'll benefit from strategic partnerships for enhanced operations. Access business loans and manage your finances easily with our client portal, F2 Fuel Card, and mobile app. At TAFS Factoring, we're more than just a factoring company. We're your partner in success. Contact us today to see how we can help your trucking business thrive.
Yes, and we also have another sponsor, who is our first sponsor that came on board, Dale Prax, and he is the CEO and founder of Freight Validate. You've probably seen his post on LinkedIn. I've met him. He's a great guy. He's one of a couple out there that are trying to stop freight fraud and double brokering, but I think he's like one of the best. Check this out.
Motor carriers depend on Freight Validate to stop fraud, but they can't do it alone.
Shippers must verify every carrier that comes in to pick up a load.
Hey Siri, check Freight Validate.
Sure, what's the MC number?
123127.
The company you can rent ME LLC is a carrier and cannot be completely validated at freightvalidate.com. The platform is not able to verify information obtained in federal, state, or public sources in regard to identity, risk assessment, or compliance history with 100% certainty. Please follow company protocols for additional safety and compliance vetting. For more information, please go to freightvalidate.com.
Fly-by-night freight brokers, how can I help you?
Mr. Broker, why did you send me this carrier? They are not validated on Freight Validate. Please do not send me any carrier that is not validated on Freight Validate. If you are not using Freight Validate, I suggest you start. I'm sorry, we cannot load you. Your company does not meet our compliance standards. Please call your dispatcher for more information.
Fraud starts with fraud. It ends with Freight Validate.
Great.
Yes, so if you want to reach out to Dale Prax, reach out to him. He's on LinkedIn. He'll be more than happy to talk to you about his excellent packages. Like I said, you want to stop fraud, he's the guy to go to. Facial recognition, you name it, he is definitely all over it. So give him a call, reach out to him. And hey, let's talk about our guest that's coming on board. I don't know if there's a single soul out there on LinkedIn that doesn't know who our next guest is. He is a friend of the podcast. Let's bring him in. Rahmel Wattley.
Hey, good afternoon. Good afternoon, guys. What's going on?
How about you?
Listen, I love the intro. I love the commercials. Like the commercials are like Super Bowl level, man. Like what is going on? When the person said, "Hey Siri," my phone started going crazy. It started responding. It's
hilarious.
Like, this is really cool, man. But it's good to be here. It's still so thankful for the welcome, and it's great to see both of you guys. What's going on? Let's talk. Let's get into it.
Yeah. Well, you know what? For those who do not know who Rahmel Wattley is, tell everybody a little bit about yourself, your business, and also about your event.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for that, Jeff. So my name is Rahmel Wattley. I am the founder and the host of the founder of Truck and Hustle T&H Media, the host of the Truck and Hustle podcast, where most people are familiar with myself from. And then we also have an event called Freight Fest that we throw every fall in Houston, Texas. Started Truck and Hustle just really quick, 2019. Just as a podcast pre-pandemic. We started off doing virtual interviews just like this. Then we kind of doubled down on YouTube, started doing some like in studio and on location content, really grew our platform. We really just tell the stories of the industry of transportation and logistics kind of end to end. We talk to everyone from fleet owners to brokers to people in M&A to people who are founders in tech. We just talk to everybody. We're looking to be the connective tissue for the industry. And that's what we do, man. We're just really excited to continue to add value to this industry that we love. So thank you again for having me on the show. And I'm looking forward to having a great conversation, man, about women in logistics. Let's talk about it.
That's great. Let's get right into it. So I know you are good friends with a friend of mine, Lorena Camargo.
I am.
Yes, I've actually been trying to get her on my other podcast to talk to her, but that gets into my first question. Since you do talk to many women in trucking and logistics, what problems and issues are you hearing and discussing with these women? Are they coming up or?
Yeah, for sure. So let me start by saying that, number one, the women who I speak to in this industry are amazing. They do a phenomenal job. They're great leaders. And they're really great at what they do, right? And honestly, there's not many complaints, right, that really come to mind. You have to kind of dig, right? You have to kind of ask those questions and say, hey, what are some of the pain points or some of the things that, you go through as a woman in the industry? So they're not complaining, right? But they're making it happen. But I did some research and I actually asked some questions, because one thing you don't want to do with the woman is tell them what the problem is. You want to ask them what the problem is.
I like you, Rahmel.
Right. So as opposed to me just saying, this is what I think the problem the women are facing, I said, let me ask some women. And these are some of the answers that I got. And I'll just start from one and then we'll kind of talk about it and then move into some others. So one that I thought was really cool was women have issues from other men in the industry as being seen as decision makers. And I think that's really cool, right? And Chrissy, I'll ask you, you've been in business for what? More than 10 years?
Well, I've been in the business for 26 years, but the business has been in business for 21 years.
For 21 years. Okay, so 21 years. So I'm sure getting into the industry, in your earlier years, you may have faced that. Talk about that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So it's interesting. I was just talking to another woman this morning that wanted to talk to me about my journey a little bit. And I talked to her about the fact that my dad made me president of the company, but yet I couldn't get things done because I didn't have the college degree and I didn't have as much experience as a COO we had on staff. So I had to go through other men within my company to go to my dad to get the decision like that I needed done. And that was a great idea. And it sucked, but I knew how to just get it done, right, and move on.
Right.
So that was definitely one of the challenges I had. Like I said, it's interesting because my dad put me in that role, and yet it was still like, well, you're still not there yet to make those decisions because you didn't have the education. And it's like, what?
Right.
So it's very frustrating.
For sure. What are your thoughts on that, Jeff?
Yeah, well, Christy and I talked a little bit about that. And from what she told me, I could definitely put all my money and the house on that. Her father was a big disciplinarian for sure, in order to get her into that chair and say, you know what, you're at the helm. You got it. you can make this thing what you want. But it wasn't easy. I mean, she said it wasn't easy, and it's very, very tough, especially in a woman environment. But when you have a woman-owned business, I asked her this as well. How do men feel about working in a woman-owned business? Now, we know what women feel like going into a predominantly male-run business. They have that fear. We talked to other guests about that as well. But we also discussed about equal pay. You don't have to really worry about that on the female side, about women getting paid equally, especially when you have a president running the show, right? They're going to treat everybody as equal. But we found that there's still a huge disparity when you get into male-dominant businesses where a woman makes 86 cents on the dollar. So there's still a void there. And hopefully with all the other guests as well, and I'm not sure if you heard anything about that, Rahmel, but we want to try to get it from out here to here so there's more equality in all businesses, in all verticals, and that it's not gender related or political affiliation or religion. None of that should be in it. It should be all about what that individual brings to the table and their contribution to the business.
And I'll say too, like you brought up about, because 70% of my staff is women. There's a male that runs my company. He's worked for me for 17 years. And I think one thing that I try to do, at least to get the word out there, is I'm out there, right, building my network, building my brand. So I think when people do come to work for me, or I know this, they know that it's a good company to come work for, and like the atmosphere or culture, it's just, I don't know, I don't even know what the right word is, but it's just different to where they can feel comfortable coming in here. And maybe, again, I haven't interviewed them, but it'd be interesting to maybe hear, because we've hired a lot of men recently, just to see what their thoughts are coming from actually another company that was very male dominated. So yeah, it would be interesting to get that feedback, and I'm going to get that because I want to share that.
Oh yeah, definitely. And the other thing too, we talked about this on another show, that a lot of businesses out there are now creating safe rooms where a woman could go into and vent about her issues and problems that she may have, and not feel that she's going to get, retaliatory against what she says, or, taken advantage of and saying, this person, she's a problem and stuff like that. I wonder in an all female business, do they have a safe room for males? I know this.
We don't.
Just turn this whole thing around today.
we have like what do you call it? A nursing room.
Well, some guys need to be nursed too. I mean, when you think about that, because they get their butt hurt, and it's like, hey, but I'm serious about that. I think that's still a big problem where, women shouldn't have that fear of not being able to speak how they feel on anything, and still they're not being brought into the inner circle. And I've talked to a lot of women as well. And it just seems that, like I said, they should be recognized for their contributions and then brought into that inner circle and be heard. I think there are a lot of problems out there is that, and we mentioned this too, Christy, as well, that you have to listen with intent. And if you have that ability to do so, you're going to learn more. A male doesn't know everything, even though they think they do. I used to do, be that way. But you really have to listen to, what's being said and not draw a conclusion, but have that empathy and understanding so that you can deal with those type of problems.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think, just across, our industry and all industries, it's definitely becoming more normalized for women to be in leadership positions. So I think, men are, starting to just settle in and get in where they fit in, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
It may be uncomfortable for some men. Obviously, they can't articulate that because, they are in the position that they are in. But I think that it's a conversation that definitely needs to be had. I think that's an amazing question that you asked. Like, how do men feel when they're working for women? And I've never really heard anybody ask that question, to be honest with you. And it's a very basic question, right? That to kind of throw out there. But I mean, it's definitely interesting, very interesting for sure.
Yeah, and think about this, right? I know, Rahmel, you definitely went through this as well. When you're working in a pretty much male-dominated business, you go to the water fountain in the morning, you grab your coffee, and you start talking about sports and everything. Yeah, we used to talk about women as well. But now when a male does the same thing and there's females and he's so used to the other side, right, of just BSing and having a good time and talk about it first thing, he has to now think about, I'm in a different environment. This is a whole different culture where you feel that you would just blurt it out. Now you really have to step back and go, I can't say that.
Right.
I can't say that,
Right.
And that's got to be difficult. That's why I'm saying, it all kidding aside, do they have a safe room for males? I mean, when they just, they don't realize and they're getting themselves in real deep trouble,
Right. And I think when, we have to be careful when we say, like, when we talk about equality and women being treated equally in the workplace and so forth, it's like we still have to make considerations for women because they're not men. Right. So it's like they want to be treated equally when it comes to, compensation and so forth. And they should be. But at the same time, we don't necessarily treat them equally socially, because it's a different social kind of interaction, and we have to be considerate of that as men, right?
Yeah.
So it's so you got to walk that line.
Yes.
And I would say I think there's some women that are okay with some of it, and some just are absolutely not. So it is even a tougher line, I think, to walk, to be quite honest, from what I've seen in my career. And just the woman I talked to this morning, just to kind of talk about it for a minute, she was talking about in her company they allowed her to build a WIT program. Women in Transportation, I think, is what it is at her company, a group of women that are involved in doing all this stuff. But then she thought it was great and like the leadership, but once she left and then went to another company that was like all male leadership, it was just different. So I was actually talking to her about how do you incorporate the male into that. And it really depends too, I think, from both sides. Men and women are so different. And this is the point I'm trying to make. We had a male leadership coach here. And then I decided to get a woman leadership coach because I think women are going to open up different to women and vice versa. And you'll open up different ways to each of them. And my COO had asked me at one point, like, hey, can I work with a woman leadership coach to better understand how to work better with women?
Right.
So it's kind of interesting how that dynamic is changing, but it's like, I would have never thought that because we were so used to using male coaches because that's what the majority of them are, right? And then I happened to meet a woman. I'm like, oh, well, I thought this would be a good idea. But again, I think everyone has to embrace it.
Yeah.
The changes and how we're just so different.
We have to figure out a way to coexist, right? It's like everybody's looking for ways to segregate us and to, like, put women over here and put men over there and make these, this is going to be special for women. But at the same time, we still have to work together. So we have to figure out, like, what is that way that we can all work together and still be able to be productive. So, it's a tough conversation. And obviously, that's the reason why we're having this conversation, because we don't have all the answers, right? There's much smarter people than us that have done studies and all this different things that still haven't come up with the solution. So it's like we just have to figure it out, and it's just like a real a day-to-day thing that we have to just keep on working on.
Right. Yeah. And I think having the conversation, sorry, Jeff, I was going to say, having the conversations with everybody, what is everyone doing? Like, with someone doing something that's so different than someone else, and what can we learn from this and have takeaways as well, I think is important.
Yeah, like best practices, right? And policy-driven cultures where, if a woman goes into a predominantly male business, what about women? How do you treat women? What can I expect in here? Are there other women that are working here that I could just sit down and chat just to try to get a feel for this? Because, and we talked about this too, Christy, it's like when you go in there for an interview, it's all about the interviewer interviewing the candidate, and they ask all these questions. I say that this is the best time for a candidate to drill the interviewer. I mean, like, really open it up. Hey, why do I want to work in here? I'm a woman. What can I expect in here? I mean, really ask those hard questions and watch body language and tones, because that's going to be like the trigger mechanisms that's going to allow you to say, you know what, yeah, this guy really means what it is. He's allowing me to talk to a woman. You know, he seems pretty honest or whatever. I mean, those are the kind of conversations that I think women really need to have when they go into those kind of situations.
So what else, Ramel, has women
Okay. So let me
blessed
see
you with?
some of my other challenges. Okay, so we said being seen as a decision maker. Okay, people challenge us on knowledge, right? Like knowledge about the equipment, knowledge about finances, different things like that. Have you had that as a problem, Christy?
I would say not necessarily. At least I didn't feel that I was challenged. Maybe because I was in the position that I'm in, and I think maybe when you're working your way up, definitely be challenged. But I will say, like again, most of it came from my dad.
Right.
I mean, I don't have any other story other than to say that, but I will say it fueled me though to show him that I could do it. So like any female that's out there that's being challenged, let it fuel you to prove that you can actually do it. You know what you know, and who cares what they think? I know that's easier said than done.
Right.
We all have that problem.
So as a woman, Christy, I ask you, as a woman, are you saying that you should assert yourself more and say and like almost embrace those opportunities to show your knowledge, right?
Yeah.
And where in some circumstances you could kind of step back, but when you see an opportunity to say, hey, let me show them what I know, is that an opportunity to do that? Or do you just say, hey, I know what I know, and if they don't think I know it, that's fine. I'm comfortable with who I am.
Yeah, I would say assert yourself exactly like you said. And if they still are challenging you, then yeah, the second part of it, you know what you know. You let them walk away. Like
Right.
walk away knowing you do know what you know. And some people you're just not going to change how they are, how they're going to react to you. But again, like my journey, I think at the end of the day, it's like it's crazy saying my dad put me in this position, yet I really couldn't do the position because he didn't believe that I was educated enough or trained enough and didn't have enough experience. But yet it fueled me to like, no, like this is not okay. Like I will figure this out. I will do it. You know, so that's what I tell all my women that I do talk to, like, let it fuel you to push you further, and then don't hear all the noise. Like it takes time. I'm gonna say that.
Yeah.
I've been in this business 26 years. It takes time to not let it get to you.
Right.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. Right, when your father was at the helm, what was the split between women and male?
I would say there was still, it was probably more half. There was probably more male event like it initially, but as the business grew, like the intermodal side of our business, for whatever reason, most males could not do that role very well. It was really a woman dominated role where maybe on the truck brokerage side, you have some women, but it was really more on the male side, so to speak. But yeah, I mean, it was more probably male than eventually flipped to women down the road. And now I think it's just because of my brand and what I'm doing, it draws women to want to work for me.
Right.
So, you know, I have a sales team that's been with me a long time, and my top salesperson is a woman. My top agent was a woman agent that we have. Like, women are killing it out there, so you got to show
They
it.
are.
And I like Stacey Gibson said, have the self-confidence, have the confidence, find a way. And again, us giving this money that we're getting from sponsors, whatever that might be, like I want women to gain confidence. It took me a long
Absolutely.
time.
Absolutely. You know, going back into the 80s when I started, you know, there were few women drivers, but I loved them when they came into and bumped my docks because they were more organized. They're more humble, more apologetic, you know, like it was a whole different way of doing business. And when they brought in their folders, you know, because everything was manual back then, you know, and everything was orderly, and it was great. And then when I was running that, I went from a predominantly male run office to female because, like I said, they were more orderly. They got a lot more stuff done. Complex was nothing to them. It was like easy. And it worked out fantastic, you know? So I have like a you know, a really good memory of that, especially when I was promoting the women who are still in the business. And as you see them succeed and you know you had a part of that, there's no other better feeling than that, whether it's male or female, but to see somebody level up and go up there, it's fantastic. And then they take those practices and they share them and they move the peanut forward. It's unbelievable. But that's like what Rahmel was saying, training and understanding and talking about these issues and all these different things that are coming up still since the Equal Pay Act, and I say it all the time, of 1963 and the Civil Rights Act of 1964. We're talking 50, 60 years ago. And there's still differences. Rahmel was talking about talking to a lot of women. There really wasn't any issues per se, but we still read and hear and see about women in truck stops, gas stations that are getting harassed by males.
Yep.
It's happening. I'm surprised that it's not talked about more. There's a lot of carriers out there that shouldn't be in the market at all. Running loads and harassing these women because they're not smart. Sorry. It's just
I will say something to this because I've been through that. I've been one of those people that have been harassed or talked to the wrong way by carriers and on the customer side. Mm-hmm. And there's this feeling of, if you say something and this is, like, how is that going to come across? Just like you're being a victim, like whether, of a husband or, just of abuse almost in a sense. What? It's almost like you're afraid to say something because you don't know what kind of retribution you're going to get. And at the end of the day, and I'll sit there and tell people all day long, that's what you should do and bring it up and put it in their face. But some of these carriers are carriers that we used on a lot of business at times. And some of these carriers are carriers we still use today. Maybe some of those people aren't there. But it's just one of those things that, like, back then I was so young, I just kind of looked the other way.
Yeah.
It's tough, especially when you're young in the industry. I could say now with my experience, it's a lot different and I can handle myself. But I almost feel like I have to be protective of the women coming in the industry. Yes. To be like, make sure you know how to handle yourself and you don't have to feel like you need to do something to get something done inappropriately with someone.
Rahmel, have you talked to some women? I know you talked to a lot of drivers.
Yeah, for sure. So I'll speak to that. And actually, like the harassment and so forth, that was like further down my list. But first, I'll definitely say I've gone on record before many times to say that in my experience, women drivers are better than male drivers, right? And I'll defend that anytime. Yep. Obviously, they're a minority compared to the amount of men that I've worked with, but the women who I've worked with have just, I guess they have like that chip on their shoulder and something to prove, that they make sure that they do everything to a certain standard, right? So like you said, when it comes to paperwork, when it comes to compliance, when it comes to just, making sure the truck is pristine, there's all these different things that they just take extra care in that a male driver doesn't do, right? So I love working with women drivers and they're always top tier. To kind of respond to what you said about harassment and so forth, I think you're 100% right, Christy. I think that a lot of times women are fearful of, what happens if I complain, because I don't want to look like the woman that's complaining all the time and there's always a problem and so forth. So I'm going to keep quiet and just, kind of deal with it until it becomes too much to where I have to kind of say something. And I think that that's really a problem. And we have to give women channels to be able to communicate, to maybe they won't feel as though they'll be that, kind of like you said, retribution on them if they speak up and so forth. So, I mean, it's all about creating opportunities for them to be able to communicate and feel safe in doing so, because it is hard when you're out there and you're a minority and you're the only one, and it's like, 100 drivers and you're like the one woman out there. It's difficult, right? They make what, 10, 13% of the industry. So at every company, that's what it looks like. That's the makeup, right? For every 100, there's maybe 10 to 13 women, if that, right? So, it's difficult to be in that position. So we have to figure out ways to make them feel safe in communicating, to where they'll be able to, talk about these things and feel free doing so.
So how are you going to change that, Ramel? How
It's,
are
it's,
you going to change that narrative? Doesn't
yeah.
it come
So
by
for
the
me,
dispatchers and the training?
it starts at the top. It starts at the top, Jeff. You have to, number one, you have to let people know that, you have a zero tolerance policy, like for any sort of harassment or any of your workers, feeling as though, just basically feeling like, they can't come and speak to leadership. So you have to communicate that as a leader and let people know it's okay. This is something that we want to hear about, and we're not going to tolerate, anybody doing that to the women in our company. And I think that's where it really starts. It starts in the leadership roles. You have to make it known that that's what's important to you, and as a leader.
And I almost feel like too, so for example, like my situation was with some carriers that haul freight for us, right? So it's almost like, do you, like us as a company, because I was just thinking about this recently, do we also have to put something out there to let them know, if you want to work with us, this is what we will tolerate from you based on what I have gone through.
100%.
I mean, even my first incident I had, it was two guys, same company, same night, within a half an hour. And I didn't say anything other than remove myself from the situation. And the next day, they both came up to me with their boss and apologized, because I feel like they both were probably knowing something was going to maybe come of it, right? But like, here we are, I forget how many years, probably 20 years later, we still work with the one company. But again, it's one of those things where I feel like, the company does a good job, but I'm not okay with the way these guys had, approached me or what they said. So maybe that's something too that we can think of as companies. If you're going to haul freight for us or whatever it is, any company, customer, this is like our expectations on how you deal with our people.
I like it.
Yeah, 100%. Put in writing.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Put in writing.
Hey, man, it is. Just think about this. It is such a damn shame that you have to go and do this stuff. I mean, come on. I mean, we're in 2024 and we're still going through this shit. I'm sorry. It's not acceptable to me. You would have thought after all these decades that things would change and men would know how to treat women. And listen, women know how to treat men. I mean, because they can be just as nasty. Trust me. They're not afraid to voice their opinions or say what they feel, and they'll get into your face. My daughter's one of those. I can say that. But the thing is that feeling that you have to protect yourself and look over your left shoulder when you're walking in a gas station or at a truck stop because you feel afraid, or you have to pack something, in case something happens. I mean, it's just terrible when you think about that. It really is.
Yeah.
No, I agree. You mean keep on going down the list?
Oh yeah. Keep
going. Go.
All right. Not being offered mentorship from other men. So in other words, hey, the more established, men in the industry, not, looking to mentor women where they would mentor another man, right? More easily. What do you think about that?
Well, I think that should be like a best practices when you talk about the top down and you have a guy that has 40 years and he's seen it all. To be a mentor and a coach, talked about new drivers coming in and how to treat women, how to act when you go into, because listen, there's women logistics managers and supply chain managers that are running the show at these shippers. If you're a male and you go in there, learn how to act. You're talking about your brand, your image, your reputation it carries with you. Why not treat them as an equal? And I think that's, really needs to be put forth up front and be talked about a lot more. I honestly, I mean, because you see it every single day, Rahmel.
So
I have a question. Well, go ahead, Christy.
Yeah, I was going to say, let me comment on this. So I have some male mentors that I work with and talk to. I think one thing, and I talked to this girl about this today, I said, you need to ask for that mentorship. Don't be afraid to ask, because I think there are a lot more men that are willing to do that now.
Yes.
I don't know how many or what not, but I know other ones I've reached out to. But again, you won't know if you don't ask. And then, of course, I'm always saying, come to me. I will help find you resources if they need them.
Yeah, so I'm going to throw this out there. Do you, Jeff, feel that maybe men feel as though if they, reach out to mentor a woman, maybe a woman may take it as if there's some sort of ulterior motive in it, and they don't really want to mentor them. They want to do something else, right? Like, is that in the realm of possibilities as to where men there's a disconnect there? What do you think about that?
Yeah,
and how do we navigate that, right?
Right, and I think that comes down to, Rahmel, is your brand, your image, your reputation, where other people talk to others about you. How do you represent yourself? It's like, sure, I'm hosting this podcast, empowering women into logistics. Okay, so I don't mind, and I say I support women all the time. I'm one of few that goes out there and saying, why aren't men supporting more women and get out there, or even join women in trucking? I think the novices that are out there that haven't been in the industry a long time, those are the kind of people that need that mentorship from, a guy or even a woman to say, hey, you're coming in here. This is the way that you represent the company. This is the way that you act and speak to people. And then you start learning that. It's all about training. And then as you get older in the industry, you don't have to worry about that. And now you've got the reputation of a good person that wants to help out another person that's having issues. But it's not that easy. You're right. It just doesn't happen like that. You yourself have to have mentors, disciplinarians, and coaches, that help you out to make things right.
Yeah. And my take on that would be like, as a woman, you have to make sure you're careful how you represent yourself.
Yep, that's a good one.
You're working with that male, because the Me Too movement, I think men are also probably afraid to maybe because I don't want to be accused of something potentially if I work with them and they think something isn't appropriate. Maybe it's setting those boundaries up front and making sure, what the conversation is going to be. I've never had to do that, I think, in the situation that I'm in, but I could see exactly where that would be an issue, and you need to, because some men might be standoffish because of that. It's a good point.
Yeah. Interesting stuff. Okay, I have another one here. So most common challenge I face is to receive equal work opportunities and equal contract rates as my male competitors, and also being respected for my experience and work industry knowledge. So equal work opportunities and contract rates, Chrissy, talk to that directly. How has that impacted you being a woman?
So it's kind of interesting. I would say I don't know that it is impacted us in a negative way because we are a woman, or not that I have seen. One thing I talk about, us being a woman-owned company, we do have an opportunity through supplier diversity to obviously get, check the box. But again, it doesn't guarantee you anything. You still have to be competitive and be the right fit. So I don't know that it has affected my company in that way, other than I will say when I was younger and talking with some drivers or dispatchers back in the day, they wouldn't talk to me specifically because I was a woman. They wanted to talk to the manager, and I'm like, I am the manager. And my dad had to get on the phone with them.
Boom.
My dad had to fire a customer because he wouldn't talk to me as well. But I don't see that as a woman driver. Maybe if they're talking to a dispatcher, that maybe favors another guy driver working for them versus the woman. I mean, I could potentially see that depending on the individual.
Yeah, there's favoritism out there. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Where they feel comfortable and you don't have to worry, well, if I talk to Mary, I have to watch my mouth and my language. But when I talk to Bob, all hell breaks loose. And that's why I want to talk to Bob rather than Mary. It's just like, no, you shouldn't have to think about that. Bottom line, you really shouldn't have to think.
You are right. It definitely probably goes on. It's just probably not seen as much, maybe.
Yeah. And the thing is how do you know unless you talk to your competitors, right? You may not know that you're getting the short end of the stick until you start having those conversations, and you're like, hold on, they did it for that, really? Okay,
that's the key: communication, asking the questions,
collaboration, communication, absolutely.
So if that does happen, how do you, let's say you hear that another carrier is getting a better rate than you or a better contract than you, how do you as a woman come back around and say, hey, listen, this is what I heard. I need to be, compensated fairly just the way they are, how do you address that, right? What's the proper way to address that?
I would say that, so we did have a situation where one of my sales reps referred this carrier to a customer direct for some business that we also do business with. And they haul the freight for us. And she did find that out, that they got a cheaper rate direct than through us. And she just went straight to him and said, why? Like, I actually gave you this in to the business direct. Then you're getting other business from us, that's on the rail side. So why is that different? And I think that's it. You just got to hit it head on.
Yeah.
What is the reason?
Did they give an explanation? Did they say why?
No, actually, no.
Got it. They couldn't answer.
No, there was no good answer. Let's just say.
Yeah.
Caught off guard. Probably didn't realize that was something that she was going to find out at the end of the day, if anything. Because she's kind of like, well, why didn't you give us that same rate? You know, it's like I helped you out and I didn't have to give it to you.
Right.
At the end of the day, but now that kind of tarnishes a relationship.
Right. For sure. I mean, I think we all know that bias exists and bias will always exist in some shape, form, or fashion, right? But it's like, how do women specifically protect themselves against those biases, or what did they do to prepare for the inevitable? Because we know it's going to happen. Like you were saying, Jeff, it's 2024. We're still having this conversation. Yeah. In 2044, we'll probably still be having this conversation. So it's like you have to kind of play offense at this point.
Yeah,
because it's like,
well, I hope I'm alive.
Well, I think part of it, though, is truly building out that network and really building those relationships with the ones that you know that are doing good by you and that you feel you can trust. And even if it was someone that you felt you could trust, when you find that out, I think it's just as simple as separating and like showing them that's how you make a statement. I'm not putting up with this anymore.
Yeah. Right. Let me ask you a question, Chrissy. If you had let's say you had a great opportunity, contract, whatever it is, and let's say, you initially negotiated a contract and you didn't get anywhere with it. And then you put on one of your male counterparts to negotiate that contract. And you found out that because this person was a male and they wanted to work with him as opposed to they actually continued on with that. Would you still take that business if you knew that they were biased to you as a woman?
So it's interesting you asked that question because I had the opposite situation where a guy was working with a customer that we could not get in the door. We ultimately gave that customer to a woman and she was able to get in the door.
Okay.
And I look at that sometimes too, where it could just be they just don't like the person.
Yes.
So I think that's the problem, right? We're talking about a lot of stuff, but there's also a lot of stuff in between
there's other variables, right? So you always can't throw out, hey, it's because I'm a woman, because you don't know if that's the case. Right?
Well, that's the thing. Yeah. So I feel like don't be so judgmental that everything is just because of that either. And think of alternative just because I've dealt with it on the other side, because of course I would take the business. Still.
Right.
I'm not going to not take the business, I'm being honest.
Yeah, for sure.
But I mean, that's the thing,
though. Yeah, it's that connectivity. It's who you feel more comfortable dealing with. You're still underneath that business name, so it doesn't really matter who's bringing it in.
Yeah,
if somebody's more comfortable with A rather than B, so be it.
Yeah, and I tell my salespeople they have to sell themselves. It's not my company.
Just that. You're also looking at best practices as well, because you're going to get your sales team around, and you're going to use that as an example and saying, "So what did you say that got this guy on? We've been working this for like 3 months, and you're on the phone for like 25, 30 minutes having a chat with this guy, and next thing you know, he's on board. What did you say?"
But you know what's funny though, to that example, I know there are times when there will be men trying to close something and somebody will say, hey, let's send a woman to do this job, right? Because we know that Bill is going to respond better to, Jennifer as opposed to respond to the other Jack. You know what I mean? So it's like
send in a special weapon.
We send in the Navy SEALs. You know what I mean? So sometimes you leverage it to your benefit as well, right? Like you have to use what you got to get what you want. So it's very interesting.
Well, women smooths out the edges compared to a guy. They can be very rough.
For the most part.
What's that?
I said for the most part, there are some women out there that definitely don't. I'm just saying there's good and bad to both,
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I think in a lot of cases, just men are more comfortable, sometimes more comfortable speaking to women than they are speaking to men. Or they, sometimes men want to have that bravado. They want to show off. Yeah, I'll get the deal done. Send it over. I'll sign the contract. How much you want? You know what I mean? So it's like they're more receptive to a woman in that way in some cases.
And they tone it down. They tone it down too. Very much. They start absorbing things a little
exactly
more.
Now they want to relate a little bit better.
Correct. That's a great question though. That really is. That's
good. So it goes kind of both ways. It's interesting, right?
Yeah, that's what I say, because it's like I remember my dad would always say, because we became woman owned, don't become a man hater. And I'm like, I'm not a man hater, Dad. I'm like, it was a way for me. Like, I thought we'd, be able to get maybe more revenue in the business, being woman owned and whatnot. But honestly, that's not really been the case, to be quite honest. But I also feel like I don't want to get business just because I am a woman either. But there's good and bad to all of it.
Let me ask you a question. That's a great point you just now brought up, right? Being a woman-owned businesses, there are opportunities that are provided to women. And like you said, to check that box.
Right.
Do you feel that men have the right to complain about that, right? Because they may operate just as well as you, and have all the, everything in place to be able to do the same exact job you do, but you get that job because you're a woman-owned business. Is that fair?
I could agree that is fair, to be quite honest. Because I mean, again, Jeff might not get the same opportunity that I get because I check that box, but 9 times out of 10, or probably 9.8 times out of 10, I'm not going to get the opportunity anyways. We've been working on this for years, and it's still been a challenge. But yeah, I mean, I think back then my idea of it was different than what I see today.
Yeah, so. And mine, and we've had this conversation, Christy. What's the one word that I hate?
I don't know. I can't remember.
The word minority.
Oh yeah, minority.
It's crap. I think it's absolutely crap. Because that lowers you.
It's a condescending word.
It is. It's such. It shouldn't even be known. You should be known for your contribution. What's your value add? What do you bring to the table? Not that you're a minority-owned business, that you're a vet or anything like that. You're still capable of doing the same thing.
Right.
But it's incentivized, with these companies. If they use a certain percentage of minorities, they get tax breaks.
Right.
Okay, so where's mine? Damn it! I want mine too.
We don't get no tax breaks.
I mean, when you think about it, it's bullshit. I'm just frank.
It
shouldn't have nothing to do with that. Seriously.
And I'll say this, Jeff. I will say, obviously there is data that proves that women don't get as much funding and all these different things.
Right.
And I think that's why they've created these programs. But I don't disagree that still someone like yourself could have a problem still getting what you need too. And I don't know how you fix that.
Well, you know what? Since I've been on both sides of the fence, I've been on the shipper side, broker side. I was a consultant. It all depends on where you are and who you're working for. You know what I'm saying? That you'll benefit if you're working for a company and you want to reduce costs. Get those minorities in there. Come on, man. We got to be able to do that. On the other side, if you're the service provider trying to get in and you're not a minority, well, you're getting screwed. Especially if they're like, well, you know what? We can't take any more. We're looking to increase our minorities. We have incentive base from the government. I hate to be blunt with you, but I'm just being honest. We have to get more women-owned business in here. Oh, okay. All right. Gotcha. Thanks.
They say that, but I can tell you right now, I'm tracking this in our system because
that's good.
And we're tracking how well we're doing or not. And I can tell you we're not. And I don't necessarily think it's, maybe some of it's from a competitive standpoint, but I think there's so many companies out there now too that are some way, shape, or form minority, where it's like, sign up in our system, and if we have a need, we'll let you know. And it's what next one.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's meant to level the playing field because, number one, I mean, we do know there is a disparity between opportunities, right, for what we call minorities and whatever the majority is, right? So it is meant to level the playing field, but I do believe that the best person should be picked for the job, whoever is the most qualified, right, ultimately. But the unfortunate thing is sometimes there are qualified people who are overlooked, right? And that's where that comes into play, where you give opportunities to minorities, whether it's women, Black, Hispanic people, right, that may be overlooked for these opportunities because of that same exact reason, right? So you have to, give them those opportunities, but they still have to be able to do the job. So I see it from both angles for sure.
Absolutely. And if you look at it too, Rahmel, that where you think you may be saving because you've got this incentive, maybe they can't do the job, so you're actually spending more.
Yeah.
You don't know it. On the front side, yeah, this looks good, we're going to save whatever. On the back side, however, it's just like, we made a mistake, when you start doing that. So you got to be very careful. I mean, you ride a double-edged sword. It's like you really have to dig in. It's like a shipper prospecting their service providers. Can they do that? Can they support my needs? Are they in the right niche? Just like an owner of brokerage or a woman-owned business, when you go out to look for new prospects or clients, hopefully you're going to ask these questions to see if they fit in your wheelhouse. Do they have the right revenue? Do they have the right shipments? Do they have the right mix? A lot of people out there fail to ask those critical questions, which is going to either make it or break it, depending upon your ROI. And if you're really spending too much time on it, I think shippers should do that too. Whether you're woman, male, doesn't matter. Do your homework. Look at the background.
Now that we're talking about this, though, too, it's also kind of like the challenge I have as a non-asset broker is the fact I don't have assets. It's kind of like being, whether you're minority or not, like that's, our thing too, because we don't have assets, we don't have the opportunity at some of these larger customers, or because we're not a $1 billion company, same thing. They don't think we can handle. So you don't get the opportunity, which is why I was all for the woman-owned, to try and show them that we could still do it. And we have done that with large shippers, but that's still a problem too. So
yeah, I mean, what's the difference of woman-owned and you don't have assets, or if you're just a regular company, you don't have assets? How are you going to be able to cover, or scale it? I mean, when you think about it, it doesn't matter.
Well, you're saying, Chrissy, if you have asset or if you don't have assets, right? You're saying that you don't have opportunities that if you were asset based, basically.
Yeah. So if I was not woman owned and I had assets, I would have more opportunities to get into a client than I do being non-asset based,
right?
Especially the bigger clients.
Right.
Even being minority owned was like, oh, let's see if we can get in there now because of this, and it's still a problem trying to get in the door. I mean, when we do, then we do tend to grow within these larger companies, and it's like, give me a lane or two. Like, I don't want all of it. Give me just something to show you. But it takes a long time. And yes, you have to earn the business, but I feel like it's the same thing. Whether you're minority or not, or asset based or not, like, I feel like it's the same kind of issue, so to speak.
Yeah. Right. Nah, I mean, it's a very, when you get into this part of the conversation, it could go really, really deep, right? Because when we start talking about minority-owned businesses and opportunities and stuff like that, this dates back to years and years, right? Like, to where if you have these, these legacy companies that have been around for hundreds of years, they'll continue to thrive while these other companies who are trying to build will never get an opportunity because they'll keep on getting trampled by the big guys. So you have to put certain things in place in order for the economy to just work, or else you're going to have 1% at the top and everybody else is going to, there won't only be one certain kind of business owner, and that's not fair. You know what I mean?
And it's almost like when you first start a business, right? I knew how hard it was when people didn't want to work with you because you're too new.
Because you're too new. Exactly. Now, so you got to give them a shot.
Right. Exactly. Right. And that's how I feel like we've got to the point we're at. And now it's like, let's give other, companies that are just starting an opportunity, because I know how hard it is. I'm sure we all know how hard it is to grow to that size. So
and it also comes down to training. If you're a newbie that's coming into the business, hopefully we're talking about mentorships and coaches, disciplinarians, who help these new people coming in so that they have a shot at this, instead of just saying, here's a phone, here's a laptop, make phone calls, and they're just whatever, just shooting the breeze, seeing what they can do. But if they had the proper training, you know, that reputation is going to go with you for the rest of your career. You want to start it off on a good foot. So ask those questions when you go into the interview, whether you're male or female. How can I move up? How am I going to get promoted? How am I going to learn? What's your training? What's your policy? You know, all that. A lot of people fail to ask because there's newbies that come out of college. Oh, I got a job. Yeah. Okay. Sign a non-compete and non-solicit. All right. You're screwed for the next 3 years. You know, so, I mean, there's so many different things. Like you said, you know, we could get in real deep here.
Yeah.
Not enough time.
we can definitely go deep. But ultimately, I guess to wrap it up, it's like you have to be qualified to do the job. You know what I mean? In order to get it done. We understand that we live in a world where certain people have certain advantages, and it just is what it is, right? But you still have to be qualified to get the job done. And that's just the bottom line.
Absolutely. Yep. So is there one last one you want to cover?
Let me see. Hold up. I think I have another one. Let me see. We're not considered to speak on large platforms. So I guess like conferences and so forth, they don't get those looks that men get. So what do you think about that, Christy?
So this is what I would say. I get asked to speak all the time. Manifest asked me to speak this past year. I didn't go this year. I went the year before. They said they wanted more women speakers. I would say put yourself out there and ask, because if they're not asking you, I will say a lot of conferences are definitely looking for more women to speak. So volunteer yourself.
Freight Fest is looking for women to speak.
There you go.
We need you to be there.
I might be there. I told him my anniversary is around that time, but I might be there. So we'll see if we can make it happen.
Yeah. Now, and I would agree with you, Christy, like 100%. Put yourself out there. We, you know, the industry needs to hear from you. We want to hear from you. Right. Women have such great vantage points and such great information to contribute. So, yeah, 100%. But what do you think about that, Jeff?
Oh, absolutely. That's why I have this platform here, and where we're talking about empowering women into logistics or even into any kind of industry, you know, to come out. We have the platform here. You want to speak, you want to be heard, you know, please come on, give us a message, DM or whatever. We'd love to talk to you about the problems or issues or what's working, what's not, you know, and we need male support. You know, I know Rahmel, you're in our corner. You want to get it out there. Freight Fest. Right. You want women to participate in that. I mean, that's what we need. We still need that. And when you look at the Women in Trucking WIT, which is in October, I believe, November, you know, they still have more women than men. I mean, it's like 30% men go there just because it says Women in Trucking. No, they need your support. You need to go there. You need to, you know, help push the narrative to start getting them from here up here. And that's how we're going to do it. You gotta do it together. That's how you unite and you build equality, and we can get rid of this narrative. You know, even though it's 60-something years old right now. You know, just like
I want to thank all the men though that are out there supporting this initiative. There's a lot that are doing it, and I wonder if that feels awkward for them at some point when you walk in a room and now you're the minority of the women. But I will say women appreciate it. And I think you're doing yourself a great service by doing that. So,
absolutely,
I agree 100%. I agree 100%.
So, I appreciate you joining us and taking the time out of your busy day to join Christy and myself here. Would love to have you come back. For those who would like to reach out to you and learn more about Freight Fest, how can they do so?
Yeah, Rahmel Wattley on LinkedIn. You could, connect with me there. And then we're all over the place. Truck and Hustle. Just Google us. YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, wherever. Any social media, you'll find us. And you'll find some of our interviews and content and so forth. And definitely Freight Fest, September 26th through the 29th, Houston, Texas. I hope to see everybody there.
Awesome.
Yep. All right. So thank you, everyone who is checking out our show today. We're on every single Monday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. Until next time, everybody have a great week. Thanks again, Rahmel, and we'll be talking to you soon.
Thank you so much, guys. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you, Rahmel.
All right. Thank you.
See ya.